Do you struggle with being able to tell people no? If you do, there's a high chance that you have an issue with setting boundaries. You might have a boundary disorder, okay? And people who have boundary disorders typically are codependent, all right? So this is the Fully Connected Podcast. I am your host, Chris Jones, and I'm a licensed therapist. And today we're going to talk about boundaries.
Fully Connected Counseling.
What is a boundary? A boundary is simply no. All right. It's a limit that you give yourself. A boundary is not a limit that you give somebody else. It's a limit that you give yourself. People who struggle with being able to set boundaries have a hard time telling people no. They do not know how to tell people no. They just see no as something negative. Saying no is not a negative. Saying no is a positive at certain times, especially when you're trying to set boundaries. No is a limitation. A boundary is a limitation. A boundary is simply no. Boundaries are limits. And when you set a boundary, you're putting a limit on yourself to what you can handle, to what your capacity is. You cannot set boundaries for other people. Okay, you cannot set a limit for somebody else. You have to set that limit for yourself. If you try to set a boundary and somebody gets upset with you, it's because this person takes advantage of you of not having any boundaries. Okay, if you're trying to set a boundary and somebody gets upset, that's because they don't respect you. And also they take advantage of you of not having any boundaries, any limitations. Setting boundaries helps you from being taken advantage of. So many nice people get taken advantage of every day because they have a hard time with being able to tell people no. They have a hard time with being able to recognize who they are and what they're worth. And this goes to our next point. Being able to set boundaries is all about understanding and respecting your own self-worth and your inner peace. People who struggle with setting boundaries do not understand their self-worth. Once you understand your self-worth, you will set up boundaries with no problem. One of the main reasons why people struggle with setting boundaries is because they do not understand their self-worth. They put their worth in other people. They have big hearts and they love to overgive, and they do not know how to be able to give to themselves. The oxygen mask goes on them last. They try to help out everybody except for themselves. And once again, this really looks like codependency. People who struggle with setting boundaries have issues with codependency, usually all the time. Okay, and that's something that we're not trying to do if you're watching this video. Let's go on to the next reason to why some people struggle with being able to set boundaries. And the next reason is really about they don't want to tell somebody no because they're worried about how that person's going to feel, right? They don't want to hurt that person's feelings. They put that person's feelings above their feelings, which is a good thing, but at certain times it can be a bad thing. Especially if you do this all the time and you give no room or no space or attention for yourself. Setting boundaries is all about self-worth. People who struggle with being able to set boundaries usually feel very sorry for the other person. So they just say, well, it's okay. You can stay at my house for a whole week or a whole month. That's not a good idea. People who struggle with being able to set boundaries have a hard time telling people no because they don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. Telling somebody no is not mean. It's not disrespectful. It's you setting a limit based on your capacity. It's you setting a limit and voicing that limit to other people that you care about so they can be able to care about you. You setting up a limit or a boundary is you protecting your peace. Okay? If you cannot set your own boundaries in your life, there's a high chance that you probably don't have much peace in your life because everybody wants your attention. There's a good chance that if you're watching this video, you struggle with being able to tell people no. If you do not struggle with being able to tell people no, some people on the opposite end of that, they have too big of a boundary, a military fortress, if you will, and nobody can get in. And it's usually because somebody in the past betrayed them, hurt them, some kind of trauma that has happened. And now their boundary is so high up that they're also blocking their blessings. Okay. And so for those people, their boundaries, they're good at setting boundaries, but they need to be able to let go of some of their boundaries so they can be able to accept the love that is out there. Okay. But for the most part in this video, we're going to be talking about how we can be able to set healthy boundaries so we can be able to have healthy relationships. A lot of people do not have healthy relationships when you really look at it. Maybe it's not with their family, their friends, their partner, and the relationships are dysfunctional. The more dysfunctional relationships you have, the more dysfunction you'll have in your life. You know, there was a study that showed people who have more positive and healthy relationships live longer. Okay. Why this is because imagine if every relationship in your life was good and was healthy. Like, think about how much more enjoyable your life would be. A lot of people get into relationships without being able to put boundaries up. And so now they get taken advantage of, and then they want to play the victim card. We can't do that. We got to be able to be the victor. We got to be able to take responsibility, responding to our ability. And one of our abilities as a healthy individual is being able to set good, healthy boundaries. Okay. People who have codependent issues have boundary issues. They have boundary disorders. Codependency is just a boundary disorder. Do you have a boundary disorder? Well, if you struggle with being able to tell people no, you might have one. Okay. But if you want more information, make sure you go to fullyconnectedcounseling.com, schedule, book a session. We can talk more about it. We can be able to help you to figure out how you can set up a wall against the negativity out there. Okay, so make sure you like this video and subscribe. We will see you on the next one. Make sure to comment below to see what other topics you guys would like for me to talk about, so then we can be able to have a good conversation and discussion. So thanks for watching. You guys take care.